Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in maybe a minute or so to let everybody join. And we are also getting our closed captioner set up during this time. So welcome, everyone. I think the participants are still maybe joining, but I'm going to get us started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Manon, and this is No Login AI and Accessibility for OER. I'll be your moderator today, and I will start with some housekeeping notes. Live captioning is available to you during this presentation, and you can toggle this on and off using the attendee controls at the bottom of your screen on a laptop or desktop. This session is recorded and will be provided on the conference website within a week. We do not have a Q&A box in this Zoom session. However, you can enter all of your questions in the chat box. We'll keep track of them and do our best to answer them during the presentation or at the end. And we also encourage you to participate or engage with other attendees via the chat. If you are having any technical difficulties, you can contact the organizers using the link at the bottom of the Sketch website, the website through which you access the presentation, the conference schedule. And today our speaker is Helena Marvin, who is a business librarian at St. Louis University. And also an OER enthusiast. She is passionate about making digital equity achievable for every creator, regardless of their technical budget. And her current work explores how AI workflows can transform the task of OER remediation into a sustainable, iterative process that respects creators' human agency. So thank you, Lena. I'll pass it over to you now.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So no login AI and accessibility for OER is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to touch, not necessarily in this order, but upon all of these things. What is alt text? What are the kinds of alt text, decorative versus informative? The OER I have been working on in question. The platform I've been working on that OER is inside of Pressbooks. Some lessons I've learned, as well as what technology I've been using, which is specifically Google Lens and Google Gemini, and I'll get a little bit into why that is. Also going beyond alt text and AI and using image regeneration tools and what that means. So first, I want to acknowledge that accessibility can be hard. You've read a lot about it, you've heard a lot about it, you've worked on it yourself most likely, and a lot of OER have what's called legacy debt, meaning that an older OER may not meet the accessibility requirements that we are seeing today. But accessibility is good. It is empowering your learners. It is meeting your compliance requirements. It's making it work, as our keynote mentioned, low bandwidth situations where your images don't appear is one of those spaces where alt text is really helpful. This talk will be entirely about alt text. I'm not going to talk about pretty much anything else. But alt text also improves the searchability and findability, discoverability of your OERs just by having more words, more discoverable. So my first deep dive is all about alt text, and I pulled this stuff from the WC3 World Wide Web Consortium. They are kind of the folks who know the most about it, and I just took their examples because if we're in OER, we don't start from scratch, do we? No, we don't. So the notion that informative images are the images that people look at in your OER that provide them with information. This can be as simple as a little phone icon that is before a phone number that helps differentiate it from a fax icon, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with fax. Or if there's a picture of a dog If it explains in the text that the dog is wearing a bell and there's a reason for that, maybe it's just decorative. But if it doesn't, and there's a reason you're sharing a picture of a dog with a bell, you need to say it in the alt text that that's what's happening. Or if you have succinct information, so this little description of a icon showing that you open the cap by pushing it down and turning it counterclockwise, and that's what the picture is, that's what the alt text should say. So that's informative images and the style of alt text you have for that. Or you have eye candy, stuff that doesn't need a description. Like if you just have the like this slide has a picture of a magnifying glass on it. Why? I don't know. Is it just eye candy? Do I need alt text for it? If there is a line on your page to help differentiate it visually, is that something that the blind need to know about? Or can you just say it's decorative and just leave it as alt equals two quotes, nothing inside of it? This same alt equals two quotes is decorative is part of the problem with figuring out if your OER meets requirements or not. Because if the alt that is empty exists, you have to be the human that knows if that image needs to be given alt text or not. So functional images also need alt text. So if you have a little printer icon, that icon should say what it does, what the function of it is to print this page. Or if you have a magnifying glass that isn't decorative at the end of a search bar, it should have an alt text of search. So this alt text is what is interior to the HTML of a web page. Alt text also exists on libguides, on Word documents, and on PowerPoints. Now, if you're wondering, does alt text exist on this PowerPoint? No, because I was bad. But also, complex images or images of text and formulas needs alt text. Now, this is where I have my little crying guy picture. So this is just a decorative picture, but it is also explaining my feelings about complex images and images of text and formulas needing alt text because it makes me sad. Because I helped to create a remix, an OER called Introduction to Statistics in the Psychological Sciences. This has been a well-received OER, but it is an OER that has legacy debt. So the remix, this is a remix of a previous statistics textbook that is a remix of a previous statistics textbook. So this is a grand baby OER, and it needs alt text for its formulas. So what does that look like? If you are on the back end of a Pressbooks held site, so this is Pressbooks in the media file, you can see all of the images that are in the textbook. Now, one of the things that gets tricky where you need to know your tech and how it works, if I am in the first edition of like the created inside of Pressbooks edition, it has thousands of images, but the actual textbook, like the living edition of it, if you make a copy of it, it only has hundreds. So thousands and hundreds are different numbers of images that you need alt text for. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but if you have questions about that, drop it in the chat. I'm going to be happy to explain more. This feels daunting, whether you're looking at thousands or hundreds of images and how much alt text they have. This is a daunting process. So AI can make it feel easier. I say feel because it may not be easier, even with the help of AI, but the tools that I have used to get alt text for all of those images is a combination of Chrome, Google Images, and Google AI mode. That is specifically Google Gemini. So this is all Google products. And you might be thinking, hey, is she a Google fangirl? I am, but that's immaterial. The reason why I chose this tech stack to do this work is that there's no account management, there's no IT security review, there's no subscription costs. It's all built in and it all works. Um, why not log into AI tools? Uh, one of the student workers who is helping on this project thinks that AI is gross, and while using it was acceptable for doing this accessibility work, they didn't want to log into it, and that is legit. Also, not logging in means you don't have to worry about hitting AI limits. You're only using the free tier. It's what's available to you. So to log into an AI tool is to link yourself to that AI tool. You should always assume if you're not like even if you're not logged in, that it's still tracking who's using it and how. Also, if a service is free, you're probably the one being sold. And that's a complicated kind of philosophic statement. We don't have to get into it. Instead, let's step back and say, what are these tools? So there's Google Lens and there's Google Images. And Google Lens is often engaged with as an app on your phone, but it is also built into Google Images. So if you go to images.google.com, you can see that you can upload images and find out things like grab the text off of the image. That's OCR, optical character recognition. I have used the app to translate. So I go to an international market, pull out my phone. I can translate stuff off of the food item I'm looking at that's not in English and is in a language I don't know, and it will give me an approximation of a translation. Very cool. You can also try to identify things. I've heard people use the app for like plants and animals, but finding the origins of images in an OER can actually be pretty helpful so you can do a better job of giving the attribution that's required or making sure you're using a free image. So Google Images will let you find visually similar images, and maybe you can find the free one that you need to replace something that is copyright protected. So again, AI can make this process feel easier, but what is this process I'm talking about? Well, don't you worry, I have an illustrative example. I'm on the back end of a press book. I have all of these different images. When I click on one, it gives me information about it. So the title is the file name that was brought in with it. And if I'm looking at this, I might think, x squared, that's what that is. But if I look at the file name, it says it's chai, C-H-I, chai. Yeah, clearly I should have made a textbook about this. So if I look at the image inside of Google Chrome, the browser from Google, I right click on the image. One of the options built in, nothing had to be installed to make this work, is search this image with Google Lenses. When I choose that, a bar to the side pops up and it gives me a little AI overview. And this is chi squared. It's not x squared, it's chi. And it even tries to tell me a bit about chi. So in this case, I know I can just add the alt text of the answer as provided by AI. But I can also know, because I'm a human in this loop, if it is x squared or if it is chi squared that I need to give as the alternative text. Now, I want to back up and say something about the workflow that I did not understand when this was established. One, the media library includes every item inside of a Pressbook OER that has been added to it, regardless of if it is live on the site or not. When I change the text from the library view, this is also true, I believe, in LibGuides. If you change the text in the media library view, it does not update on the page. So why has Pressbooks done this? I don't know, but it makes me very, very sad. You have to edit the alt text, not from this very convenient media library view, but from inside the book view. Always test and double check before you commit to a workflow so you don't do a lot of extra work that you don't need to do. Do the edits inside of the kind of more live version, contextually aware. It also will let you see if the text, if the image is being described as in the text, then it can be considered decorative. So Keep that in mind. The other bit to show off some of the tool of how AI helps in this way, if I'm looking at something like this S parentheses Y, the statistic symbol of S parentheses Y minus Y hat, that's the little hat is like the technical term for the little arrow at the top of the second Y, and that it's representing the standard error of the estimate in a linear regression model. Knowing that, like how much do you want to say in your alt text? This is where the human in the loop needs to be part of it. But in that sidebar, you can have a bit of conversation with the AI overview where you can say, no, suggest better alt text. Like what should I include? And have a bit of conversation, which is just a neat feature. It feels like it's easier. It maybe isn't necessarily actually easier. I hope that distinction makes sense. But yeah, changing the alt text here is very helpful. Now to get a little more into the OER of it all, if you're not looking just at images that you've produced, so all of these formulas were introduced by my co-author, Judy, who's super cool. She made the book beautiful. And now we're making sure it's all alt texted up. If you're using somebody else's picture, in this case, this is a comic from XKCD, which is kind of a popular nerdy comic that I added a few frames into into the book to help liven it up and to illustrate a math thing. Saying, what is this? Who made it? So inside of Pressbooks, in addition to alt text in the kind of more OER side of things, you can do a reverse image search, figure out where the origin of something is. Bonus, if you are inside of Chrome and you highlight some words, you can click search in Google and then pop out of your AI overview, dig a little deeper to find the true provenance of a thing, and then you can include those attribution information also inside of this OER generating tool. So in this case, it's the source, where it came from, the author, about the author, and the license agreement that this bit is under. That's part of the beauty of OER, is being able to dig in like that. So making the alt text is great. Going deeper and making sure you have all of your attributions is also kind of best practice in the land uh, of OER. One thing that's kind of neat is if I go and look at the source, there's also alt text from this source, and I can choose to use the same alt text or to use different, or to alter that or alter that alt text to better match what it needs to say in this resource. So that can be a good source as well. So again, there's this question of why you wouldn't log into AI tools, why you would use stuff that's just built in, or why you might want to log in to AI tools. So I think being able to acknowledge and show what I have done with an AI tool is very valuable. By logging in, I can create shared past history of prompts. I probably should have gotten a little more into, you know what, I'm going to back up. If folks are talking about what is AI, Chrome is not AI. Google Lens is kind of AI. It is classically AI before generative AI became a thing. So Google Lens can do image recognition, and it could before it got linked up with Gemini, but now it has been linked up with Gemini. So Chrome is a web browser. Google Lens is a app you can have on your phone, or it's part of the interface of images.google.com. And the Google AI mode, which pops up for free, and you can just like go and start clicking into it, exists both on the Google homepage, probably built into different parts inside of Chrome now, uh, but also is linked into how Google Lenses work. Do not ask Google Lens if you can eat a mushroom. Don't trust the robots when you are foraging. Don't buy foraging books that were written by AI. Just a side note. So, this process of looking at an image, right clicking on it, searching it, say, search this image with Google Lenses, that pops into this AI mode. When you are in the browser, it actually pops up as this like fourth of the screen. And that is where you can look at AI mode, all exact matches, products, and visual matches. So that notion of products is part of what I meant before when I said if you are not paying for something, then something is being sold to you is often then you are being sold. So in this case, you are being sold to people who are advertising. I have no idea what products might pop up with chi squared. Usually it's used if you are looking at a picture of somebody who's like wearing a scarf and it'll try and sell you similar scarves. So these tools are very helpful to a human who is doing this work. When you are watching something that just generates alt text, you have to read it. And that is a pain in the, it's just a pain because it will look true, but you need to make sure that it is actually true before including it. So you have to double check this stuff. So again, I do use loginable AI tools. And just to expand a little bit on why that can be a worthwhile activity, I have a flow chart. I upload it into the Google AI model and I say, hey, I want to remake this flow chart. Backing up. Images can exist as many kinds of images. I know I heard about, I wasn't able to go to Manon's session. Emojis are images that have the alt text built in. Beautiful, learned that from Manon. And that's like one kind of image you don't have to worry about. There are lots of formats of images. Putting alt text on an animated GIF can be really helpful because then people will know like what it's depicting, but it might not make sense. So maybe it's just decorative if it doesn't have information in it, if it's just about conveying a feeling, or you can say what feeling you're hoping the GIF to evoke. But images can also be generated from text. One kind of complicated image is a flowchart. And one version of flowcharting is this thing called mermaid syntax, which can help generate an editable version. So if I give an AI that I'm not logged into and I say, hey, how does this flowchart work in words? Like it can do that. My prompt was specifically, can you turn this into an XML? That's a whole separate thing. And they're like, no, here's an easier way to just describe it. A flowchart in mermaid text might be a way to do alt text of a picture. This is what mermaid text generates. So you can think outside of the box. That is the flowchart in question. If I am inside of the Google like loginable, I like the Google AI Studio version of this. If I make that same question of can you turn this into XML, it does. XML is a different file format. It's very nerdy. There's a tool called Draw.io, which is it is a free to use tool. It's an open source tool. This is Draw.io. Being able to like make this be different colors, change the text, write it all out is a powerful tool. It can be very helpful, and it can generate other kinds of formats that may be of interest. So when I asked the loginable version, hey, can you turn this Creative Commons diagram into a diagram that I can edit in XML inside of Draw.io, it gave me this. Is that as pretty? No. Can I just get the source for this in XML in Draw.io? Yes. Is that relevant? No. I'm just showing that part of what is neat about AI, like as it's getting there, is the ability to remix things that are free and adapt them. So that is a suggestion of mine. But yeah, this isn't very pretty, but it is kind of neat. Being able to do those kind of updates is potentially helpful. I didn't want to get too deep in that if in case it got too hard. My slide deck was created by Slides Carnival, and it's under a Creative Commons license, but it's buried pretty deep on how that works. I was supposed to put my email there. I did not. So that's it. I ran on too fast. I talked too fast. Any questions? Who wants to know more? Who wants to know less? How can I erase your memory of this?
And Lena, I think if if you're willing, if people want to unmute themselves, since we're not in a webinar format, people can do that, or anybody can post questions in the chat. This was wonderful, Lena. You know, if anybody wants to know a little bit more about how to do different parts of Lena's presentation, the different examples that she showed us, you can let us know in the chat.
I have also dropped my email into the chat if you want to follow up later. So just to back up, on the internet, if there's a picture, there should be alt text. Alt text can help not only folks who need screen readers, but also folks who have slow internet. So helping to meet compliance, to support screen readers, low bandwidth situations, just making things more searchable. But the question of what is an image and what image needs alt text is really tricky. So in the question of what other tools are like Google Lens, that's a great question. There are other tools like it, but it depends on what quality you want. So there's other tools that can do OCR, which is grabbing the text off of an image. There are other tools that can do recognition. There are other tools that do alt text generation. I know inside of Canva and Canvas, I believe, and a few other tools, they've started doing automatic alt text generation. So it depends on what you're hoping for. But I don't use other tools. I use Google Lens. So if anybody else has used tools that are like but are not Google Lens, feel free to answer that question. The notion that am I in the pocket of big tech for this particular slide deck? Yeah, absolutely. Like this is a entirely Google oriented workflow, mostly because of the trouble with other workflows is that you have to be logged in, you have to install software, and it might have a subscription cost. This workflow all exists within a browser that is already installed. So the big benefit of this workflow for me was not having to install anything and not having to leave, or specifically not having the student worker have to leave the window they were already inside of, because it pops up as a panel to the side. But thank you so much for the question, because it meant I could answer something or attempt to. I may have answered it wrong.
First, I'm jealous that you have a student worker to help with these types of tasks. One thing that strikes me as really like this is what's really powerful about this workflow is that you can use it for like easy, kind of more simple alt text, but also the entire flow chart, which would require, admittedly, for grabbing the flow chart, like the code on the back end, you would probably need some knowledge of whether the code is accurate or not, correct? Like we need to be a little bit familiar. I can't remember what the language
So,
is,
all
but
right. So this is what's tricky. Um, Draw.io is another free software that I use inside of Google Drive. Like if I can open, I use it as like a third party add-on. But it's no like learning, you don't have to learn XML because what you can do is you can say, give me that, and then upload it, and then you can see what it produces. So you can kind of skip the step of knowing if it's accurate. But if you're looking at that mermaid thing of just describing it in like human readable text, that's what mermaid is, a great little framework for flowcharts. Um, that one you have to read it in case the AI decides to change the words because it's a word generator. I believe that Google Lens does work within Google Docs, but it can be tricky because you have to like get it to play nice. So I'm not 100% if it works there, but I think so. I have had to save images out of PowerPoint and drop it like into Keep or like just to get it out of the page. But if you go to images.google.com separately on its own like tab, that's a great workaround. So, what advice about time management for doing alt text work? This helps in planning, budget, and focus. Ooh. Do it ahead of time. Do the alt text while you're building it. Don't have debt to the past. The past is a terrible place that has no alt text. So if you can include the alt text as you're going along, it's way easier to build something that is accessible rather than remediating it. But I would say look at what you have and do a sample of it to begin with. Um, yeah, I don't know. Oh, so mermaid. Let me pop over to the kind of example. So when I asked the free Google AI mode, so this is without having to log in. You can see there's a little sign in thing in the corner. If I toss in a flowchart and I said, can you turn this into XML? It's like, no, I'm not turning this into XML, but I have reconstructed it via Mermaid. So this language down below is flowchart TD, which means like it's like HTML but for a flowchart. And it says, Q1 question, Q1 answer yes, answer no, Q2 no or yes. Like it's structured out the idea of a flowchart in plain text. So if somebody cannot look at a flowchart, they could read this a little bit like a choose your own adventure, but Mermaid can also be used to generate a flowchart. So this is that Mermaid text being uploaded into draw.io. Does that clarify the answer? It might. Do you ever run into a use token limit when not logged into Gemini? No, but it's way stupider. It does not do the same level of work. So if I am logged in, I will run into you've hit your token limit, and it'll produce a bad job. In fact, one of the kind of frustrating things that happened was when I did generate this XML and it became this, there used to be a free in the Google AI Studio because you can choose different models in that studio of like which one you want to use. Oh, do I have that labeled in here? No, I guess not. It's like usually over on this side. Um, they used to have some models that did a better job at this. So I came up with the idea of asking the AI model to give me a to make an XML of an image or to make a SVG, which is a scalable vector graphic of an image, because it's language and it's a language model. I was like, oh, I wonder if it does that better. And it kind of does. Um, So, do I have any advice regarding workflows to manage images used in multiple places to keep track of the alt text you used before? Would you being logged in help, or maybe using an AI agent? Okay, I will admit something right now. I've not used an AI agent. I find them kind of scary.
Yes. I'm just wondering about because you were talking about like this, like in that press book specifically, where they have all of these equations, and like sometimes it just helps to keep track of what you've used before, or like for example, in an art class where you're having students, you're describing things in a certain way in your alt text to make sure that students have the right cues in the exam when they're identifying artwork or those types of things. And I have personally have not found a great way to keep track of other than a painfully detailed spreadsheet to
So,
keep track of those types of things.
I did use painfully structured spreadsheets. One
Okay.
of my initial workflows I tried for this project is the Google AI Studio can build an app, and I had it build an app that did the analysis and exported a spreadsheet where it gave the name and the file name and the alt text, and it kind of worked. Eh, don't recommend. Um, so I have no idea how AI agents work, but I am scared of them. I have used overly complicated spreadsheets. I'm not sure if there's a better solution yet. Uh, One thing that's kind of nice is if you are looking at something inside of Pressbooks or in a web page, you can also look at the alt text. So you can see your past examples in the live version being used. I No, it'd be great if there was something. I suspect as these models get better, the requirement to make alt text might go away just as a social concept. Because if it can get good enough to do it that you don't have to make it, maybe it won't matter anymore. But we don't live in that world yet. And there is this requirement to meet accessibility standards that is not taking into account accessibility tools that can use AI by itself. And I do love that human in the middle aspects. So no, overly complicated spreadsheets are kind of the best thing I've tried. But maybe an AI agent would be better. Hard to say.
I tried my first AI agent last week creating it, and it did not work out very well. So I'll stick with the spreadsheet. But I th one thing I have noticed as well in using the kind of built-in tools for AI for alt-text generation, like in Canvas, maybe even in Pressbooks, and also in Microsoft, it's more often than not wildly ineffective for the purpose that I'm trying to achieve, which has been frustrating. Um, and hopefully we'll get to that stage soon where AI can do it all for us. But right now, it definitely feels like we really need a human in the loop
Yeah.
to be able to provide like effective descriptions of what we're trying to convey or what the image is conveying.
So when it comes to the question of what is the kind of time sync on this, it depends entirely on how many images, what the nature of the images are, and the amount of knowledge the person who of expertise required. I did get to know this stats book pretty well in helping to get it created, and there are tips in the file name, which is the other thing I would recommend is having good what's called digital hygiene when you are naming files. So you can look at that file and have an easier time finding if you've created alt text for something like it before in a big old spreadsheet that also should have good digital hygiene of having good names. Um, that said, when I was facing thousands of images, and it really only should have been hundreds of images, but it looked like thousands because in the initial created press books, it it kept every version, even when all of the things were updated, because we did a couple of imports to try to get it working. So it's only actually hundreds, not thousands. But looking at either hundreds or thousands of images is scary. And thinking I have to do all of this on my own, or I'm setting up a student to do this all on their own, uh, having that feeling of a digital buddy that's helping you do the lift is nice. For me, being able to go and stay in the browser without having to leave, without having to track anything, but also not questioning what if I'm regenerating this alt text? That's fine. It's within the new context of whatever it is. So the idea of I'm going to keep asking for this help, that's okay. If you think it's okay to do, it's okay to do. So to expand just a little bit, as there has been a question, should spaces be inserted in file names? Usually spaces are okay. Best practice is that you do something called camel case, which is the similar to like in some citation format requirements where you have the first letter of every word. There's different norms for file names, but one is a lot of description, no spaces. The big thing is no special characters. You can't have, I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. Don't have any special characters. Don't have any quotes. Don't have any at signs. And this is just because of the ways in which automation can engage with files. So no special characters, no spaces, no and symbols, no at symbols, no exclamation points. Numbers are fine. So alphanumeric, no spaces, as descriptive as you can be is a good idea. Some people will organize their files into like very structured folder formats, but as folders have gotten less popular, you can move away from that. Some people do file ownership where they'll have the person's name or the project that something is attached to. Um, Knowing the provenance of where you found something can be very helpful. With open educational resources, you are supposed to give attribution to where you got stuff. Keeping track of all of that is why this Pressbooks like media library exists, because inside of this tool, I can include that attribution information that's at the bottom part of this page. But the idea that you have to track so much information about everything is part of what makes the digital lift of OER feel really heavy sometimes. So being able to right click on something and say, hey, Google Images, where did this come from? And track back why you think it's open and who owned it can be really helpful. But yeah, in this example, you can see that the title of this. So I don't like using periods in a file name, but this one did have it and it's fine, so whatever. It's saying the equation number of what chapter it is, and this is what edition of this image it is. So there were hundreds of images used, but they had different editions of them. And I believe that's because this was an export from InDesign, I think. Maybe it was something else. All of the math had to be generated somehow. Judy knows more about that. It was in a previous presentation I did at some point in the past, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's really hard to do some of this. Math is tricky. But the alt text for it doesn't have to be, although there are interesting different standards of how you describe math for reading purposes if you're using a screen reader. So yeah, that oh, by talking too much about Google, I got my phone to start talking back to me. That's the other thing about this wiretap technology. You talk too much about it, it's always listening. It's a little creepy. Yeah. And the decision not to use AI at all totally valid. Um, Drawing the lines between what is AI and what is automation, I think is very important. If most people who are talking about AI and are saying, I don't want to use AI, mean they don't want to use generative AI. They're usually okay with something like Google Maps that is not generative AI, but is still an automated algorithmic whatever. Although some people are like, I got to throw all this tech into the ocean. I got to stop dealing with this stuff. Well, it's legit. Um, but I really like tech, especially in how it informs students' ability to access, to reuse, and to engage with OER materials, as well as professors.
I think it's still kind of like a messy moment right now where lots of things are overwhelming. But as we kind of like shift from the, you know, compliance mindset with those due dates coming up for Title II and just kind of like start establishing like more stable, more sustainable workflows and the tools get better too, like the AI gets better, then there will be more opportunities to refine these workflows. Thank
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Lena. We still have a few more minutes, so if anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat, and I'll copy and paste Lena's email from earlier if I can. I don't know if I have
Oh,
to
I can just type it. Um, oh, it's in there now. Thank you. You're so quick. Yeah, so fantastic. Sorry I talked too fast. In my previous session I mentioned that I was going to caffeinate, and I may have over caffeinated. I do. One of my big hopes is that Pressbooks, because there's supposed to be a plugin you can use to apply all of your media library metadata to your live book that might be useful and might work. So my hope is that Pressbooks will get that working. Thank you for saying it was an awesome session in the chat. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And you're getting multiple heart emojis as well. So with that plugin, does that mean that whatever you add, the alt text you add to the Pressbook gallery, media gallery will just be automatically, like it would automatically, all of this metadata would apply to the pages where the image is used?
Yes, but the only person who can make that plugin work is the administrator of Pressbooks. And
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
this this is not about that level of power. I will say, because while I was working on this Pressbook, on this presentation, I worked on this Pressbook at my previous university, and I can't get in there, but maybe I will in the future. No worries. The URL for this is pressbooks.test because I used AI to help me figure out how to spin up my own server of Pressbooks and import the book to work on it. So if you use it's called dev version of the software, like on your own machine, you can't host it, but you can kind of do exports of it and you can still explore various parts of it. I was not able to make it to spit out a PDF, which is what I wanted most in the world. But I have started developing this dream of a virtual box or live USB where you can just plug it into a computer, have Pressbooks, but not have it host it just for doing development stuff. So I'm starting to work on this dream. And if enough people are interested, email me and maybe I'll spend time working on it. Because I think it would be a good idea to have, again, I came to open educational resources from an open source software background. So the idea that I could have a little live stick that I can walk up to any computer and boot into Linux and have Pressbooks running already on it and have all of the software I want for all sorts of things just going would be really cool. But it would take some time and some hacking. And I'm pretty close, but I need encouragement. So this is my call out to anyone watching. If you want a live Linux USB, email me. maybe I'll work on it. But it is something that became more doable because I can ask AI questions that otherwise I'd have to ask what's called Stack Overflow or Reddit, where it's very developer centered questions of like, how do I make this resource work? And it'll give me little baby steps and walk me through typing in the command prompt and using Lando, which is the development version of Docker, which is the virtual machine equivalent of a server container. Who knows what's happening? But it would be cool. So that's my other kind of side project is can I make my own press books?
Portable press books. It sounds like several people agree that it is quite a brilliant idea.
It
Uh,
would be nice.
well, thank you so much, Lena, and thank you everybody for attending this presentation. If you want to contact Helena, you can contact her at helena.marvin@slu.edu. And this is, I believe, our last session for the day. So thank you so much for attending this Missouri Affordable and Open Educational Resource Conference. And we hope you really enjoyed your time with us. Thank you so much.
Bye.